Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. A child protective services case is one of the most frightening experiences for any parent. Don't face it alone. Face it with confidence with Urgent Assist by CPS Protect. You can have access to former CPS investigators to make sure you preserve your rights and protect your family. If you're facing CPS involvement and aren't sure where to turn, their child welfare consultants can help you. Visit cpsprotect.com/subscribe and enter the coupon code Slam the Gavel for 10% off your first year of Urgent Assist. And this is available in all 50 states. I have another announcement. Bradley's mother, Narcus Golan, passed away 5 months ago. He is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul, New York State, 518-474-8390 to please keep Bradley here safe in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. I have a return guest on. I'm very happy to have Kenneth Vignali back on. The last time he was on was actually February 16th, 2023, season 4, episode 39, where we talked about peace of mind and we discussed cyber stalking and how individuals prey on vulnerable people. And he is also the founder of Signature Peace of Mind, where victims can go for help with cybersecurity issues. And I welcome you back to the podcast. And, we need to secure our lifestyle. We need to secure our children's lifestyle. And what is this AI that is so daunting?
Absolutely. I mean, with the proliferation of technology, right? It seems like, parents especially have had quite a difficult time over the last decade or so
Mhm.
trying to keep up simply with the nonstop apps that were, being created, chat, gaming apps, things like that. So it's always been a problem, and there have been, tech vendors that have been trying to help solve that problem and raise awareness. But it's always evolving, and
Mhm.
this latest iteration of artificial intelligence is definitely causing more and more concern for already stressed out families that just don't have the bandwidth or the knowledge, right, the background knowledge of how this all works together. So we're trying to educate our population, our parents, our families, educators on these well, the technology can be good, it can also be used for bad,
Mhm.
right, like anything else. So
Yes.
help educate people how to be responsible and reduce their footprint.
Well, I even heard that, like, if you answer the phone, you don't even know what the phone number is, and you just say hello. And
Right.
it could be whatever, telemarketer, whatever, but it also could be an AI issue where they can hear your voice and then they can duplicate it and turn it into any message that they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm sure typically people, case in point is we typically encourage people to use multi-factor authentication, right? So when you log into your social media, you log into your banking, school websites, usually, you have a username and password, which is usually easily bypassed, by hackers and malicious people. And we've always tried to educate people on, implementing the multi-factor where you would either use, one-time code sent to your phone or email, which is really not secure. App-based is better. But, that being said, multi-factor has evolved where, in the same vein, banks especially have been trying to implement, biometric authentication. So using your voice. I've had some major institutions that I bank with, offer this. And, I thought about it, and in my research and discussions with other industry peers, they have enough security as it stands. And to your point, you don't know how your voice print is going to be used.
Hmm.
A lot of marketing is used, using artificial intelligence, created videos even. So it really doesn't take much to build a profile with somebody's voice.
Yeah, that part is so creepy. It's almost like if you don't recognize the phone number, don't answer the phone, right?
It's a very, some of the best sage advice is one we've heard for many years, right? If you don't, even with caller ID, if you don't know the caller, if you're not expecting a call, just let it go to voicemail.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and then if they
Yeah.
leave a voicemail, or if they call repeatedly, then there may be something legitimate there. So, but even, just simply picking up the phone and saying hello, and you hear a click on the other end. It could be somebody just trying to pick up your voice print and build a way to authenticate against some of your accounts.
Mhm.
So it's definitely hard to say for 100% certainty in each
Mhm.
case.
Yeah, I don't know, that's just so creepy how this was even developed. I don't know if they, not to sound stupid, I don't know if they developed this a couple of years ago, this AI, or when this came about.
So I'd have to double check my timeline in history, but
Yeah.
it's been around for a number of years. It didn't just, it didn't come out, in the last week or 6 months. It's been something, uh, around for a number of years, probably I would venture to say close to a decade. I know a lot of tech companies have been trying to finesse the technology, finesse the algorithms, where they can offer, more streamlined services. You can get issues resolved, with different vendors and things like that. So it has been around for a while, but in the last year or two, especially, it's become more mainstream, where you can Google artificial intelligence tools, and there are dozens, literally dozens of different free options that you can you know test and play with. And from creating marketing videos to generating like chat gpt. A lot of schools are trying to combat ai use in homework. So a lot of kids are very intelligent, and they've found a way to be able to use that to create their reports, complete their math homework. So it's definitely opened up yet another series of challenges. So for all the good that it can do, there's always, there are people out there that find a way to leverage it to their own use, whether it's malicious or not. So it's always trying to a challenge to stay one step ahead
Right.
of
I
the
would have
market.
never thought to help that with my homework. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah. So teachers are having to come up with new policies on plagiarism and using this tool. Companies are having to roll out policies and review their standards and policies and processes for the usage of it within their own companies. So
Mhm.
it's definitely a conversation that's happening from student usage to the workplace environment.
I mean, that could even get someone in trouble for, like, say, a crime they didn't commit.
No, that's very true. Artificial intelligence you can use to create fake videos. I know this is not getting political, but there have been a lot of issues with fake videos being created of celebrities, political figures,
Mhm.
um, even everyday people, where they were able to create this content to emulate the persona of somebody that they took from somewhere, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, right? So they found available footage and enough content to create this spoofed image of this person.
Mhm.
which, causes a lot of, civil unrest. It could cause a lot of, questions, was my spouse somewhere they shouldn't have been, so you can imagine, right? It's just yet another way to, uh, create some havoc.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I just it's so upsetting, because, I know we talked about cyber stalking the last time you were on. And,
Right.
then you've got these middle schoolers that are cyberbullying, and that's always going to continue. Apparently, these kids are always going to do this to each other.
No, I mean, it's, not to be negative, but I mean, that's just reality of the human nature, right?
Yeah.
People have found ways to bully each other and abuse each other throughout history, right? So as technology and tools evolve, they find ways to leverage that,
Mhm.
to cause harm to others. So it just speaks to the human condition, right? So
Mhm.
we just have to be that much more vigilant, and having these open conversations with our children where um, they're not afraid to come to us, and we're able to back them up, speaking to school officials, and trying to help them resolve these situations, so
Mhm.
you don't end up with another adolescent suicide, or
Mhm.
depression, or school shootings, for
Mhm.
example. So it just requires
Yeah.
more people to be involved, more people to really put in the effort to become educated on the issue and not shy away from it.
Mhm. Yeah, and how do you help these people? They contact you, and I don't know if you've been contacted over an AI issue yet.
Um, no, no, I have not had any cases specifically for my own company that have involved artificial intelligence, but I've received, even overnight, I received another case of a student athlete being harassed and
Mm.
bullied on Instagram. So people like to hide behind burner or fake accounts to do these things, and sometimes we can find out who it is, and sometimes the person says what they want to say, maliciously, and then they just burn the account, and you don't hear anything else from them. So that's a whole other conversation. But um,
So
there's a lot of ongoing work in that space.
so they can post whatever they want and defame your character, and then just burn that account, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, so I think kind of like the conversation with child exploitation. I know a lot of folks in Homeland Security, U.S. Marshals, and these federal agencies that specialize in these types of cases. They're constantly discussing their frustration level with Facebook, Meta, right? Who owns
Mhm.
these platforms, and Apple, where they're not so compliant, right? Not willing to help them with these clear investigations. Again, I know it's a political hot button issue, right?
Yeah.
Privacy and things like that, but when there's clear um, evidence of wrongdoing, it really is necessary for big tech, these big companies, to step in and be willing to leverage the technology they already use to
Mhm.
really put an end to it. So help with investigations, and they can use their own technology to you know mitigate it even further. So
Mhm.
it's just a lack of, from what I've heard, it's been a lack of willingness on their part to
Mhm.
really address it and put an end to it.
Well, I even noticed on Facebook, someone can, make up something about you, and then your account is locked for 8 days, and you don't even know who did that.
Exactly. I mean,
Um, and there's no
yeah.
one to call on Facebook. Like, I wish there was, like, a call center there where you can say, "Hey, can you lift this restriction?" I don't know what I did. I
Right. Yeah. So it's, I mean, that's the same for LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of people get banned on LinkedIn for they wake up one day and log into Facebook or LinkedIn and they see their account's been locked, and there's no clear explanation as to why. It's just you violated some innocuous policy. And in regards to support, it's always been horrible trying to work with the privacy and trust team at Facebook and Instagram, and they've had a lot of layoffs again.
Mhm.
This this past year, so it just kind of compounds the problem. So um, I am working with a group from a nonprofit that I'm with. There are some connections that I've discovered that work at Meta, in leadership, where I'm trying to create these resources and direct paths that are repeatable, where my clients and others can get that help, those resources, especially when it comes to your typical, I hate to say typical, account hijacking, right? Some hacker
Mhm.
gets a hold of your account, changes your username, password, emails, and then starts posting a lot of you know uh, either illegal content or um, and then there's the cyberbullying issue, where so I've been having more conversations with peers of mine who have their own network of connections that work there. So where I'm trying to build out that process so that we can get a clear path, for resolution,
Mhm.
for our clients.
Yeah, and there's always gonna be something else around the corner. So I wonder what's gonna be around the corner after AI is hanging around, you know? We don't
Right.
know. It's just something else to not worry about, but just wonder what else is next.
Well, I mean, that's why a lot of people that work in technology, security, they usually typically follow, trends and
Mhm.
developments in the industry, such as quantum computing. That's been around for a number of years, but it's, a lot of countries are racing to be the first to have, these powerful, systems that can compute, different programs, different, things, in record time. So I'm not an expert really on quantum computing yet. I've been following, the Chinese, their experiments with it, and evolutions, and the U.S. I know that's a pretty big concern and topic as well.
Mhm. I know the last time we were talking on our podcast, we were talking about, like, some people are in a really vulnerable state, and
Right.
they get these calls that, are almost like extortion calls. I don't know what else to call them, where they're fishing for, money, trying to get your bank account to see if you'll do it, or even your
Right.
social security number. And you could be so distraught and not thinking clearly, and somehow you offer this information and then you kick yourself later. You know, it's just
No, it's definitely very, very unfortunate. So um, yeah, in those cases, I mean, it just speaks to there are so many reasons to take a look and reevaluate how much information you're sharing, you
Mhm.
know, what you're sharing with the stores when you check out, whether you go to Old Navy or some store at the mall, they all ask for a phone number or email address where you can sign up to get their
Yeah.
rewards card, you'll get 10%, 15% off or whatever your next purchase. So, there's, you don't have to be paranoid, but there are strategies, that I work with my clients on where, yes, you can have, these burner accounts, right?
Mhm.
Set up where you can, if you really do want to take advantage of these discounts or whatever, you can give them this contact information, which isn't really linked to you. Um, and then coupled with that, again, being proactive, it's always wise, like you hear, right, as an adult, to check your credit scores, at least once a year.
Mhm.
and make sure you don't have fraudulent activity occurring,
Mhm.
in that vein. And with the example of sharing information at the checkout counter, a lot of these companies sell, if they haven't been hacked, then they sell your information to third parties, data brokers. So it's like, your identity is like the new oil. It's
Mhm.
information is the gold of today. It's so valuable. There are hundreds of data brokers, underground forums where your information is being traded, from uh, your medical information, your, social security information, banking, emails. So, uh,
Mhm.
so what I like to do is, work with my clients, identify from a privacy and security perspective, what do you value the most?
Mhm.
What are you concerned with the most? Is it somebody finding out where you live? Is
Mhm.
it somebody figuring out where your kids go to school? Um, what your your mortgage is, all of this
Oh.
information. And so, we do, through my company, and I know a couple others, we have privacy as a service where,
Mhm.
we'll listen to our clients, and then we offer to provide, report on, okay, this is, a sample of what is easily found about you, about your family, your spouse, where you live, where you work, hobbies you have.
Mhm.
And then yes, we have services, to help clients, clean that up. And then
Mhm.
not only do we help them remove, the data that's found online and these forums, we also work with them on implementing, you know, easy strategies to mitigate that from happening in the future,
Mhm.
right? So if you're forced to give, an email address, a phone number, or something, there are very cheap and inexpensive ways to set these other things up so that, should it get leaked, it can't be tied back to you. And then, should it be leaked or you discover it in a breach,
Mhm.
where it most likely came from, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I gave this email address only to Old Navy, or I don't have anything against Old Navy for the
Yeah.
record. I just know a lot of people that shop there. So it's just an easy example.
Bath and Body Works.
Bath and Body Works is another popular one, with the, the female community, I know. So, I mean, it can be cumbersome, but if you set up two or three of these and you give it to,
Mhm.
stores or doctors or whomever, um, you really lower your risk of the consequences should it get leaked or breached or whatever, because it's not tied to anything real. It's not tied to your real identity. So we have strategies where, we set up, one secure email and phone and all that for, important things, school, doctors, if you have an attorney, important day-to-day business. And then, if you set up one or two additional, burner accounts, then, you can give those to anybody that for some reason needs to put it, to fill in a blank,
Mhm.
on a form or whatever. So it is all about, it requires vigilance, um, a more proactive lifestyle, not paranoia, but just more awareness. It's
Right.
just about awareness, thinking about, wow, maybe I shouldn't be oversharing this, or I shouldn't share, all of these videos of my kids and my family on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. So that's, um, a good way to live
Yeah,
and
well,
protect.
I mean, it's all almost is paranoia because you wonder what are they gonna do with this information,
Right.
and once you've given them information and you slipped up because you were vulnerable, that just makes it all the more worse to be more paranoid, you know?
Yeah, especially, I mean, that's very true, especially for those who've already been heavily victimized, whether it was through, their family was attacked, or, targeted by doxing, or, swatting, you
Mhm.
know, people who've lived through very traumatic situations that negatively impacted their family. So they have already been burned, uh, very seriously by previous breaches. So,
Mhm.
so it is healthy, and wise to question, do you really need my information for this
Right.
service, right? So, and in many cases, no. I mean, you can set up a lot of things. Banking is a different story, but you can set up phone accounts and other, utilities and things using. Um, well, this depends on jurisdiction, but with minimal information to get things going, and they really don't need as much, personal information as they claim. So it never hurts to ask. And then on that note, um, I also follow, privacy laws around the country.
Hmm.
And, the good news is there are a lot of, privacy experts and attorneys that have been working with various state and local legislatures to enact things like the GDPR, which is a privacy law in Europe.
Hmm.
They're trying to emulate that and put that in place in different formats across the country. So, there are website states that have passed, laws where companies are required to delete your information if you ask them to, in the US. So Virginia passed one, California, ironically, has one. So the good news is, while there is a lot of bad things happening, the good news is there is a trend, a positive trend, where laws and regulations are being passed to, better protect the consumer. So if you realize, you made a mistake, or, you're getting too much spam or whatever from a third party, right? A service provider, a store, a restaurant, you can contact them, their headquarters, and demand basically that they delete any of your information they have on you. And they're supposed to be able to, have good controls around, where the data is, on their servers, and then have the ability to, one, provide a report to you on what data they have. And number two, have a pretty comprehensive way of deleting it and making sure it's erased. So, that is something I'm staying on top of with my own company and for my client base. And I think, it's a good thing for all of your listeners to look into and pay attention. So I can provide, resources where they can track, different states and,
Hmm.
what's happening, so they can see what rights they have in their own, location.
Yeah. And what happens if you get a client that wants you to track, like a family member, and you question if it's like a stalking thing, like if it's a domestic issue? I mean, I don't know if that's ever crawling across your plate, but
That is a very interesting scenario. Because with my background, we're typically working on, you know, helping our clients break free of such situations. So, there are some clients I've had come to me and say, "Hey, I've got, a family member, they're very smart, but they're bipolar. They have these, Alzheimer's. They have, medical issues, and it's not always a husband and wife. It could be, an uncle concerned about the niece. It could be, a brother concerned about a sister. So, um, there are a lot of ethics involved with that, right?
mhm,
Uh, because that could definitely get us in hot water. If we don't flesh out the situation, and honestly, like if it turns out to be a legitimate situation, and we have consent, we look for explicit consent from, the third party. So, this male could come to us and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this. Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Well, we don't offer hacking services or services to help you, stalk somebody. However, let's get this other person on the phone or whatever and have a conversation. And if they consent, there are other methods, right, that a lot of parents are already using today. So, there's the Bark app, there's Gavel Wireless, there's a lot of, uh, legal methods of, keeping tabs on your loved ones.
mhm.
Um, there are medical devices, there are, anyway, so there's stalkerware and spyware, and then there are other, methods where you can achieve similar things if it's a legitimate requirement or you have approval from the other person that you're planning to
Mhm.
track. So it gets a little, when it comes to a parent-child situation, I talk to them about, like Gap Wireless, which is,
Mm.
it's, I gave it to my teenager and it's you have explicit control over the apps they can install. You can keep a tab like a geofence and get alerts when they go out of certain geographic boundaries. So it kind of builds a behavior pattern. If something bad were to happen, it doesn't have internet. So anyway, so all that being said, there are really effective ways to go about it legally.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can tell in somebody's tone of voice or how they phrase the question when they first approach you or me about it. You can initially get a sense, but it does require conversation and talking to the other person as well to make sure this is consensual. So
Mhm.
and not being done out of malice or other illicit intent,
Right,
basically.
right. I mean, because they could be involved in some court battle or some lawsuit, and they wa
Exactly.
they wanna be
Exactly.
monitoring what could be going on the other side. I don't
It's so true. It's absolutely true, and it really takes little effort for the average person to go out there and Google, spyware apps for iOS or Android, right? So anyway, so yeah, my company does not support or advocate, that type of activity.
Mhm,
With that being said, and circle back and put a, be clear about what we do. We don't, help install or deploy spyware, but
mhm,
if you have a legitimate documented, medical concern, and there is explicit consent from the third party, um, then we show other applications that can achieve that. So
mhm,
Bark is a big one that's created for parents, right? To keep there are other good ones as well, but that's just another one that's become more common that I've seen.
mhm. Yeah, it's also complicated. I mean, it's way
And
over my head just to even, think about this AI and, eh, you just don't know
yes,
what is going on. Even online, they can take your face and put it on somebody else's body and
yes, yeah, that's yeah, the term they're using for that is deep fake. So
Mhm,
that's what that activity is called. And then that's being used to simulate kidnappings as well,
mhm,
which we've seen a few. I haven't dealt with any of those, but I've seen a couple of those stories in the news recently where parents have shared their horror stories of uh, you know these scammers calling claiming they've got their child, right, their preteen daughter or
yeah.
other loved one. So
Yeah, it's you really don't know who to trust, and you have to be careful even more so nowadays than, like, 30 years ago. Yeah.
no, absolutely, absolutely. It's caution.
Mhm,
Caution is definitely warranted, and the right amount of not paranoia, but awareness. I like to say
mhm,
situational awareness. So, you can panic and worry about everything that doesn't really do you any good. So, you can reach out, and research. You reach out to me and my company. You can reach out to, other experts and, you know, just like any other school project research, right?
mhm,
Um, and read up on particular issues like the artificial intelligence driven kidnapping scams that are happening. How do you protect your family? How do you protect your loved ones? Without living in unhealthy paranoia. So
mhm,
having an educated level of awareness with
mm,
clear there are ways to mitigate your risk to reduce the threat landscape to protect your family proactively without totally clamping down on everything. It's more balance, finding the balance in everything, right? Find the balance in the type of content you're posting on social media.
Hmm.
Find the balance on, should should my teenager or kid have these accounts? Should I be posting videos, pictures, and
Yeah.
sharing things that are about vacations and medical conditions? I know a lot of people like to keep family members and friends and neighborhoods updated about medical journeys that people are going through, whether it's cancer or some other horrible chronic illness. So there is such a thing as oversharing, and there's a way to do it securely and with minimal risk.
Mhm. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just like what's the TikTok issue is everyone saying that China is watching our TikTok or is somehow controlling the TikTok. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is, I know that's another hot button issue um, in regards to like banning it and stuff. So my personal professional opinion is it's been, I can provide information after the show, articles, research
Hmm.
about, hey, these are the security reviews that have been done on this particular app.
Hmm.
Um, yes, it's fun. Yes, it's trendy. However, the fact of the matter is the Chinese Communist Party owns it. There's a company called ByteDance. I know not to get too much in the weeds, but there's a company that's a front for the Chinese Communist Party called ByteDance that owns this application and many others. And there is a disparity between the type of content, portrayed to Americans and Westerners versus, what Chinese youth are seeing presented to them. So like in China, yes, they control it and own it. Yes, they've used it to steal intellectual property from, Western companies. And, yes, it's being used to encourage a lot of malicious behavior in the youth, whether it's, I've seen a horrible trend. I've talked to friends of mine who are former FBI, law enforcement, CIA, and, they've all agreed there's been a bad trend the last several years on encouraging people to do horrible things to each other, whether it's stealing from a store, whether it's damaging a construction site, whether it's I mean, these are scenarios that I've seen firsthand. But and then there's trends going around all the time of assaulting teachers and recording it. There's my older daughter, who's in middle school. There was a trend recently where kids were body slamming each other and sending each other to the hospital, knocking each other unconscious. So
Oh.
it's any application for those that want to argue about semantics. Any technology can be used for good. Any technology can be used for bad. TikTok specifically, there are many in the intelligence community within our governments that are patriots, that are they're family people too, fathers, mothers, who've done their due diligence on this, and it's a lot of people argue that it's being used to conduct psychological warfare on our population.
Mhm.
Making our between this and the fentanyl crisis that's coming from the Chinese Communist Party. It's there's some think tanks in the government that call it a form of hybrid warfare. So
Mhm.
um, I know we're spiraling out of the initial focus, but the bottom line is it's being used strategically to destabilize our youth, deteriorate their mental health, increase suicides, dependence on the wanting and needing and craving the likes and approval of others, to the extent you'll commit and take part in these heinous trends. And there are good trends too I've seen on there, but mostly it's there's a lot to be desired
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
So it is problematic for sure.
Yeah, I think too much technology maybe is not a good thing.
Agreed. I'm still relatively young myself, right? And yes, I use a lot of technology for my employment and helping my clients, but there really is it's like any hard drug, right? So it's very addictive. You can slip into the trap of trying to compare yourself to others, um, and a lot of what we see is not reality.
Mhm.
It really, for families especially, it's important to find a way. There are a lot of tips and tricks I know to break away and set time limits and screen limits and cut off the
Mhm.
internet and data plans when school is out or when whatever, to get breaks and spend more time outside. It really is important to step away, uh,
Mhm.
and find other hobbies where you're not playing on a phone all the time, whether it's reading a book even, or going for a walk, riding a bike. Um, and I talk to a lot of clients about that too, about the mental health piece of it,
Mhm.
because it's important for everybody to step away.
Right, because it seems like it turns into, like, I don't wanna say OCD, but you get these notifications on the phone,
Oh yeah,
and it's like, "Oh, well," a lot of them I just let go by because I know it's not doesn't isn't gonna apply to me anyway, but you've got people, this is, like, also the breakdown of the family where everybody's sitting at a restaurant on their phones.
absolutely, absolutely. So that's contributed to. Again, I know I'm not a psychologist nor counselor or mental health professional.
Mhm,
I do speak to a lot of them who are credentialed, and I've seen and had a lot of research shared with me too about these trends and the impact on the nuclear family, and how you have these series of events over a period of time that breaks down the family unit. Um,
mhm.
people don't want to communicate even when they're in the same room. You know, I've
Right.
I've seen people. I mean, I've been guilty myself. I've been guilty of waiting for a meal at a restaurant sometimes and messing around on my phone. Sometimes, usually I'm waiting for somebody or by myself, but I've done it too with the family at the table. It's I've actually taken an extreme route
Mhm,
of drawing up family contracts like, hey, at meal times and at these times we're going to put everything on silent, we're going to put everything over here,
mhm,
and focus on this good food that was prepared, and
mhm,
have a conversation, talk to each other about what's happening in our day-to-day
mhm,
life. That's how you discover potential challenges going on with your kids at school,
mhm,
or bullies on the bus or whatever it may be, good, bad,
mhm,
ugly. So I agree. So um, for my own family, I've I've taken that approach. So it's I to hold myself accountable to my family. I also sign these agreements, and we have it posted. So it's a good reminder. So it's all about building good, healthy habits as well.
mhm. Because do you think going back to this AI, it's not really in full swing, is it? Do you think? Or not?
Um, I guess in the sense of full swing, it's become more accessible.
Mm,
It's become extremely accessible for, and pretty trivial to use it for. Again, good or bad, right? What are your intentions? So
mhm,
technology inherently is not bad per se, but yeah, I think it's become mainstream enough where families are experiencing more challenges where people can you know really ramp up cyberbullying, and on the extreme side of it, um, the fake kidnapping,
mhm,
extortion scams, right? Um, so it has become. I think it's become mainstream enough where the average person is really they're seeing they're seeing the chat GPT talked about on the news, and there are easy ways to find it and experiment with it and see what you can learn and do, and get away with if you're somebody with malicious intent.
mhm. Well,
So
there's so many personality disorders out there that are very, very smart to figure this stuff out.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, again, keep in mind, artificial intelligence, right, is built by humans.
Hmm.
So there is, I've seen a lot of experiments done by security researchers, both good and, the black hats, the hackers, where, um, they're interacting with it. And some of the models, will respond and say, well, I can't do that because that's unethical or whatever. But it's, there are ways around it where, um, if phrase a question a certain way or phrase something a certain way, it'll provide the desired, results,
Hmm.
you're looking for. So again, there are always ways to get around controls.
Hmm.
Again, 'cause it's designed by humans, by people, and everybody has their own biases, good, bad, or indifferent, and so they build those into the models.
Yeah. And it will just continue. It's technology. It will just keep going into something else and morph into something else. And
Always,
and you've got a big job because you've got to keep up with all this.
it is. That's why I try to keep a very, varied network, of professionals and experts, and
Mhm.
some are engineers that deal with this every day, and it is impossible to stay fully up to date on everything, and so that's why I keep the network I do, and I have the constant conversations and touch points with certain people that are tied into certain communities, so that I can understand how it's being leveraged, and try to understand to the best of my ability how something has been set up,
Mhm.
programmed, so that I can take that new knowledge back and try to leverage it for my clients, for those that reach out for help or assistance.
And some people, I'm sure they come to you and they're super naive, like they had no idea that the situation they're in is actually worse than what they thought it was.
Or vice versa. But yeah, I mean, um, yeah, it in some cases, yes. Once we start, picking apart the details and kind of digging into it, sometimes it is worse than what they first thought.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not as bad, thankfully, as some initially believe. And there are easy remediations for things. So it all, regardless of situation, right?
Mhm.
Whether somebody is committing a fraudulent kidnapping scheme using artificial intelligence, where they found your family, did their homework, and saw that your teenage daughter posts all these videos. Not, it doesn't have to be inappropriate, right? Sexually based or charged. It could be just simple, recording a dance, recording things with friends, and
Mhm.
uploading it to Facebook or TikTok and Instagram. A lot of these threat actors
Mhm.
will take samples of those videos, plug it into these artificial intelligent platforms, and just like mixing a record, mixing a CD, music, there are programs where you can, um, cut and paste and chop. You get a piece of the voice, and then you can leverage artificial intelligence to build out, with the inflections, with the voice patterns, a convincing scenario like the kidnapping things, where
Mhm.
these people create that and then call up a mother, father, and say, "I've got your daughter here," and the parent says, "Hey, I want proof of life. I want to talk to them," and so they've prepared and they've set this up where it sounds convincing. And then so sometimes they'll realize, oh, my child is at school, they're okay, or they already have mechanisms set up where they can confirm. So
Mhm.
again, it's it's more important than ever to really assess, reevaluate what is what you're sharing online, what your loved ones, children are sharing, and just having those honest conversations, not to instill fear, but just say, hey, we really, I don't know, every family is different, everybody goes about it differently, but just having those honest conversations, not fear based, but saying, hey, we just really need to be careful, because there are bad people out there that will take advantage of these technologies and
Mhm.
abuse, what you've shared, and could cause legitimate harm to, to you, to the family,
Mhm.
friends. So just it doesn't hurt to do a periodic check and have these conversations, with
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
with
you have
them.
to be constantly communicating with each other instead of being on the phone every 2 seconds.
Exactly, exactly.
Do you see any trends in the future that are could be coming our way that's gonna be like this kidnapping thing, these voice over type of things?
Trends. I mean, they're always, it's always going to improve and get more convincing. So,
Mm,
um, I think, the best way, instead of talking about trends, but I think, the mindset we need to have
mhm,
is being proactive, being conscious in a healthy way about what we're sharing, because regardless of what the next technology, what the next advancement may be,
mhm,
if we're proactive about how we're conducting ourselves online, what we're sharing, the information we're sharing, going back to emails and phone numbers
mhm,
and things like that, that can tie back to us if we're careful and have a proactive mindset, clean up what's out there, and then just be more proactive and wise moving forward. I think that definitely trumps, it will really mitigate your personal risk,
mhm.
moving forward, regardless of the trend, uh, moving forward.
How can you I won't keep you all afternoon, but how can you
Oh,
keep your emails more secure? Is there a way or not, or
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a way. So, um, using, I know I have a lot of clients that come to me with Gmail compromise, their
Mhm,
account's taken over. So typically, when using multi-factor, they were relying on the text message, method of getting notifications sent to their phone. So it's very easy for a hacker that knows what they're doing to
mhm,
clone your phone number and have those messages sent to them, and then they can log into your account. So this is just one of many ways to do that. So there are strategies you can implement from using a secure method or more secure method of multi-factor, which includes using like an authentication app that produces a one-time code. A lot of email providers are using or integrating with things like, and I can provide more information after the show. It's called a UB key, so it's a physical key that you
mhm,
have, which generates a code, or you can use that as instant authentication with your devices, and then making sure you don't give access to anybody. And a big one really is phishing emails. So
uh-huh,
social engineering will stick around forever, I believe, because it works. So being very aware and leery of the emails you get is super important. People are still, I mean, they're not everybody has the same level of awareness or has been exposed to these things where, you'll see a lot of fake, failed Amazon delivery emails.
right,
You see a lot of hackers like to use these common vendors that everybody uses: UPS, FedEx. Oh, your iCloud storage is full. Please click here to increase the storage
uh-huh,
volume, and so they'll direct you. Um, you can click on a link and enter your username and password, and these hackers will have your information. So to secure your emails, it is a layered thing. So taking a look at where you're using the email account, making sure you're not using the same password. It's another common theme. Do not reuse the same password with every
mhm,
online account. So implementing something like the YubiKey, implementing a password manager like Dashlane or Bitwarden. There's a couple of good ones, that'll help you. You remember the master password to get in, and then these password solutions will generate secure passwords and it'll keep them for you. So you can just use that to log in. And then making sure you've got multi-factor authentication set up, and don't overuse the hey, use your Facebook account or Gmail to log into this website. That's a
Mm.
single sign-on or federated authenticate. It's supposed to make it easy, right, to identify yourself and log into a third-party website. Um, so yeah, taking those layer approaches, and then there's the extreme where you can set up Proton email accounts. They're very encrypted. They're encrypted from you to other Proton users, and then with Proton you can set up two passwords, where one is to get in, two passwords and multi-factor, so it's really locked down. You enter the password to get into the account, and then you can add another password to uh, decrypt or open your email. So even if somebody got in the first way, if you have a separate password, they really, the amount of damage they can cause is limited,
Mm.
because they don't have that second password to get into your actual emails. So,
Mm.
um, I use that myself, and it works out really well. So, different strategies depending on the account, but those are
Yeah,
some strategies.
yeah, that's interesting. No, I'm so glad I had you on. I'd like to have you back on again.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to join you on your show and discuss these things. With the goal of just making it more conversational, making it more mainstream, getting people to think, right. So
Hmm.
making people uh, harder targets. So
Hmm.
my main goal in life, through my business, through all my interactions, is to just make people more aware, educate them that they don't have to be victimized. There
Hmm.
are some simple strategies to reduce being victimized, moving forward. So it's all about education and awareness,
Hmm.
um, and also making these new strategies, something that's not going to be cumbersome, where they can adapt it in their day-to-day life, right?
Hmm.
So if it's going to be super technical, if you have to have a degree to understand it, then it's not going to work. So
Hmm.
that's why I spend a lot of time researching and testing different technical solutions and processes to make sure it's easy to adapt for people.
How can people reach you if they have any questions?
So I've got my website, which is www.signaturepeaceofmind.com. You can reach me at contact at signaturepeaceofmindadvisors.com as well. And then I have LinkedIn, and I do have company social media profiles like Instagram. So, you can find me on there using the company name as well.
Great, great. Well, thank you, and we will meet again, but don't jump off. Slam the Gavels, a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and book 3 coming out probably the end of June, Raised by These Wolves. And join us again here with Kenneth Vignali for another exciting episode and other guests. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.